Today is July 20th, 2023. I'm doing a update today on what's going on with my health. Let's get started. Good morning, carnivores. So last Wednesday I had my MRI and also went to see the doctor on Monday and had some blood tests for him to go over with me as well. Some interesting results all the way around. So I've had several CT scans over the last few years on my lower back and some on the rest of my back as well. I remember watching some videos about carnivore that some people were having their damaged discs in their back regenerate, and that seems to have happened in my case. I've still got some serious damage in my back, but the discs that were, according to the CT scans, were basically gone. There might have been some fragments left there, but for all intents and purposes, they were completely gone. I was convinced I was facing a spinal fusion surgery, and it turns out that those discs have almost completely regenerated. There was one with a little tiny bulge left in it and another one with a little bigger bulge, but neither of those are affecting pain in my back or anything. It was absolutely shocking to me. Now, I didn't talk to this doctor about it, like about the older scans, because he's pretty skeptical of this whole diet, and I just didn't want to get into it with him. So I'm actually going to be working on getting copies of the digital files for those older CT scans so that I can, just have a record of this kind of amazing progress. So I was just absolutely floored that there was no sign of missing discs anymore. The miracles that just seem to continue on this carnivore diet are just mind-boggling. Now, what they did find that's actually causing the pain now, and this kind of makes sense because the nature of the pain in my lower back has changed from what it was a few years ago, especially when I was taking all the morphine and everything. I just thought that the change in the nature of the pain was because of my weight loss, the shifting and changing of balance in my spine because of losing all the upfront weight. So I assumed that was why the nature of the pain was changing. And it turns out it was because those discs were regenerating. I'm just still having trouble wrapping my brain around this. But it turns out that, of course, I've also got osteoarthritis. That's one of the autoimmune diseases that I've got. And even though it's in remission now, I suffered from it for many years and it did its damage. So what's happened is, and I'll see if I can find some pictures to pop up on the screen that you can see. So on every vertebrae in the spine, there's these little horns that stick out on each side at the top of each vertebrae. And there's nerves that branch off from the spinal cord. So there's nerves that branch off from the spinal cord that go out between those horns. So what's happened is the osteoarthritis has deformed those horns. It's built up all these really bumpy, jagged surfaces and everything, which is what's impinging on the nerves. Even though I'm still looking at surgery to fix that, it's going to be a much less invasive type of surgery. I mean, they still have to open up my back and everything, but they're no longer having to go and fuse vertebrae together and be worried about damaging the spinal cord or anything like that. So all they've got to do is reshape those horns and take off that stuff that's overgrown and smooth it all out. So basically they're going to go in and do a little sanding and bodywork to those spurs that come out of or those little horns that come out of the vertebrae. That's going to mean a lot shorter recovery time. So I'm actually looking forward to the appointment with the surgeon. So my doctor has officially put in the order for me to go see him. So in case you weren't aware, here in Canada, you can't just go see a doctor you want to see. You have to go to your family doctor and get a referral. So that's just the way it works here. But on the upside is we don't have to pay for any of this. So now to my blood test results. Some interesting stuff going on. I was able to go take a look at my results before I went to see my doctor, and I saw that my triglycerides were even worse than they were the last time, which I really couldn't understand because, I mean, I even cut out all seasonings so that I have absolutely zero sources of carbs in my diet. So I didn't understand what could possibly be spiking those triglycerides. And I know after, looking at the research and seeing lots of information from Dr. Chafee and Dr. Barry that there's no link between eating fatty meat and high triglycerides. It always comes from like carbs or sugar, basically junk food, which I don't touch. So I couldn't understand what was going on. And then I decided, well, maybe I should do some research and see what's going on, because I know my doctor is going to be pushing me to go on medication for this. And that's not going to happen. I started looking around and discovered this one little video where a guy was talking about this series of tests that he did. And it turns out that when you're a carnivore, one that's eating a lot of fat, that there's a temporary spike in triglycerides. It's not harmful to you, but it creates this temporary spike that goes away if you haven't eaten long enough, and drops back to what its actual levels should be. So it turns out that you're supposed to wait at least 12 to 14 hours after eating before taking a test for triglycerides. When I went for my blood tests, I think I was I'd eaten 7 or 8 hours before. So, and when I think back to the previous test, it was kind of the same thing. It was like probably 5 or 6 hours after I'd eaten. So I think that's part of what's going on here. So when I talked to my doctor, obviously he was really all concerned and everything. So I told him about what my research had found, and that I'd like to get tested again, and then I'll make sure I fast. I just won't eat that day at all. So I'll have like more than a 24-hour fast. So that should be good there. So the other thing that kind of surprised me is that I've been treating my thyroid with iodine drops, and the last couple of blood tests I've had, my thyroid still wasn't there, but it seemed to be improving the previous couple of times as I was increasing the dosage of iodine drops. And it probably was a bit, but it seems that the iodine drops just aren't doing it anymore, and it was actually worse. So this actually explains partly the problem I was having with just not being able to lose weight anymore. It's just kind of stuck. Now, I had a little bit of success kind of jump-starting the weight loss again by quitting using my mouthwash, which had artificial sweetener. But that only lasted a few days. And then I was back to, gaining a couple pounds and losing a little bit, and basically just hovering around this 325-pound mark, up and down, give or take a pound or two. And it's been really frustrating. But now I understand why, because my thyroid is so bad right now. Like, the blood test results were just terrible. So that's what's affecting my metabolism and stopping me from being able to lose more weight right now. So my doctor really wants to put me back on Synthroid. I told my doctor that when I was doing the research for iodine to treat my thyroid, I kind of stopped there. I didn't look any further. When I found that information that tended to be one of the best ways to deal with it, I didn't look any further. I said, give me some time, let me do some more research, and I'll try something new. And if that still doesn't work, then I'll take your medication. I'll go back on the Synthroid. But I may have found something. So, and there's actually a couple of benefits to the solution or the possible solution that I found. Now, I was worried about some of what I was reading, because some of the natural remedies for hypothyroidism, some of the plants that people are using for hypothyroidism are nightshades, like ashwagandha from Africa. That's like one of the most popular and most powerful treatments people are using. But anything that's in the nightshade family triggers my arthritis, so I can't touch that. So I continued researching, and what I found was that there was actually quite a few herbs out there that can be helpful. but the two that I settled on are turmeric and ginger. I did an initial test, and it turns out I can take them. I don't react to them, which is really good. And what I've discovered as a side benefit is they're actually helping the inflammation in my back. Usually within a half hour to 40 minutes of drinking the mixture, then the pain reduces significantly, and it stays gone for a few hours. Right now, to try and boost my thyroid a little better, I'm doing pretty high doses 3 times a day, and after about a week I'm going to back it off a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a big mug of water, heating it up, and then I add a teaspoon of turmeric powder. And the first time I added like a full teaspoon of the ginger as well, and although I could drink it, that was pretty strong, so I backed it off a bit. So I'm taking maybe a little more than half a teaspoon of the ginger, and then I add a tablespoon of the apple cider vinegar instead of drinking it just in plain cold water, and stirring that up as a drink. Now, if you're going to do something like this, you have to keep stirring it as you drink it, because the turmeric dissolves out of the water and stays in there, but the ginger keeps settling out. So you got to keep stirring it before every time you take a few drinks. And then you might wind up having some at the bottom that you have to eat with a spoon, kind of a thing. So I've been getting some pretty good results with that, as far as, reducing the inflammation and pain in my back. Now, I won't know for a little while yet if it's doing much for my thyroid. The last couple of days I had gained back a little bit of weight. I had gone from like 24.2 pounds up to 26.8. But this morning I was back down to 24.8. So I lost a couple of pounds overnight. So it might be having an effect. So right now I'm doing this first thing in the morning, and then sometime in mid-afternoon, and then later in the evening, a couple hours before I go to bed, kind of a thing. Although last night I did it just right before I went to bed. I was up a little later than I normally am. So I will keep you posted on how this works. I've already got blood test in hand, and I'm going to go get tested again in about a month. And we'll see what happens with that. I'll also keep you posted on my referral to the back surgeon. He is very good. He's got an excellent reputation. He's been here for, I guess, a little over a year, and he's been clearing away a lot of the backlog. So I'm really hoping that's who I can get in to see. Just a quick update on some other changes I've noticed for the carnivore diet. I've noticed that my eyebrows and my mustache are starting to darken up. They used to have a lot more gray in them. And the hair on the sides used to be as gray as the front, and it's starting to darken up a bit on both sides. So that's pretty interesting. And of course, I've already mentioned a couple of times that I've stopped losing hair. I was, every time I combed my hair or washed my hair, I was getting like handfuls of hair in my hand, and that's not happening anymore. So that's been really, really good. And of course, my eyesight has been improving. Some days I can work for a couple hours on the computer without my glasses. Other days I can't at all. So, and some days it's in between. So it's kind of going up and down. I think part of that is tied to the issues I'm having with my thyroid. Because now that I've been taking this, I started this other stuff I think on Monday, or no, I guess Tuesday. So since I've started this, I seem to be able to be working without my glasses again. So I think that's part of what's going on there. And of course, the weight loss has kind of stopped, although I am still losing fat. I've noticed that even though my weight's just been hovering around the same 325 pound mark over the last month or so, I'm still able to tighten my belt a little more, and my clothes are hanging a little looser. But I've also been getting a little more active doing stuff. My back hasn't been so terrible the last couple of weeks as it was before, so it's easing off just a little bit. And now the last couple of days, taking this new solution, I've been able to do even more. So that's been a really nice change. I hate not being able to do stuff. It's really frustrating. So the other thing I've noticed recently is I'm getting a little more healing with the peripheral neuropathy in my feet. And unfortunately, the kind of the side effect of it healing a little more is I get more areas where for a few days it gets really painful as it's kind of coming back alive. You know, kind of like when your hand or your leg goes to sleep or something, and when you restore circulation, you get all those painful pins and needles. That's kind of what happens with spots in my feet that are starting to come back alive from peripheral neuropathy. So I've had a few days where it's been kind of difficult to walk, but now I'm kind of past that and just getting more and more feeling in different parts of my feet all the time. It's really quite something. I'm amazed almost every day at the healing that's coming from this carnivore diet. I recognize that this diet isn't for everyone, and not everyone needs this diet, but for those of us who have been suffering from severe chronic illness for many years, I believe it's really the only permanent solution. Now, if you're interested in more of kind of the function behind how this diet works and some of the details on how to implement it and how to use it and some of the other benefits, make sure you check out some of the other videos on my channel. I've also got a playlist of carnivore research, which has links to all the major doctors in the field and researchers and some documentaries. So if you want to find out, you know, from the medical side, there's a lot of links to actual research and stuff out there. And I've also got links to stories of healing. So these are people that have been healed through carnivore, and they're usually being interviewed by other doctors or researchers. So there's some really interesting stuff in there. And then, of course, I've got a nice playlist of carnivore recipes that I've done. So you can check that out. There's some really neat experiments and stuff I've done in there. And I've also got lifestyle discussions. So I think it's just called Carnivore Lifestyle is the playlist. And this is where I talk about a lot of the aspects of this diet in more detail. And I've got some links to research in some of those videos as well. And if you're interested in any of the products that I use, there's always links down in the description for all my videos where you can find those products. Now, they are Amazon links that I get a very small commission for, but it's a way you can help out my channel, and you still get the same price you'd pay otherwise. So it's a pretty good deal. And then, of course, I've got my vlog playlist where I just keep you updated to what's going on. So things are kind of moving forwards for our move. We've just had to submit some paperwork, and now we're getting the damage deposit together. We have to have a new damage deposit for the new place, and then we'll get refunded from here after we're moved. I'm not sure if we're going to get a move by the end of this month. We might wind up having to move at the end of August instead. It depends on how long it takes them to finish fixing. I know they're pulling out all the carpets and putting in hardwood floors, and they're, you know, of course, painting, and I don't know if there's other stuff they have to fix up. But so we're just kind of waiting for all that to get done. So we're trying to get our place organized. We've got a bunch of boxes stacked everywhere with stuff packed, and we've got to do more. So it's a little bit of chaos around here. Hopefully we'll get moved in sooner than later. I hate moving, but this is going to be a really good move for us. You won't see any of this stuff behind me anymore. I'll be able to set up a much cleaner looking YouTube studio. So it should be a much nicer setup over there. We've got a lot more room. And we're actually going to be able to get some more freezer space once we get over there with the more room. So come this coming spring, we're probably going to split an entire cow with somebody. So we'll have enough room by that point, hopefully, for a full side of beef. If you like my videos or find them useful, please make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll know when the next ones come out. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you being here. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.